Welcome back to Hot Rod Guy Garage. Today we need to work on 65 Mustang some more. So follow me along through that intro and I'll be back. So, alright guys, if you're new to the channel, make sure you check out the playlist this video's in on this 65 Mustang budget drag car build. This video is going to be about the journey of getting this thing painted on a cheap budget. Initially I had a $300 goal. Unfortunately we've done past that. So we needed to raise the goal at least to $500 to be able to get materials to finish painting this thing. So in this video we're going to start. We've already roughed in all the bodywork at this point. I've got some cheap primer sprayed on the car. And we need to get a high build primer on it. So what we're going to do, we're going to go back in here with some 400 grit on a block. We're going to hit the cheap primer and the guide coat and see if we have any major issues to go in here and fix. And hopefully by the end of this video, we're going to get some high build on a majority of the car. So first, we got somebody down here on the floor. I want to say hi. You want to tell them about your shirts? Check out our merchandise store? Huh? Everybody gonna be wondering. Yeah, you happy kitty, aren't you? So, along with Daisy reminding you about our merchandise store, I'm going to too, guys. Shirts, t-shirts, hats, you know, there's a few other things on there too. I'm constantly adding or taking away merchandise from a merchandise store. So make sure you check it out because it helps projects like this come to life. So, let's get ready for our first phase of getting this thing started. So what I'm going to start out with is a couple of different Dura blocks. This long block, this short block, and this little small block. And some 400 grit self-adhesive paper. So let me get this stuff loaded up and I'll be back. And alright, how we're going to start out, guys, I'm just going to take this 400 on like this long block and I'm just going to work this until I start to see a little filler again. And what I want to see, I want to make sure I don't have any large ridges or any bad spots. So I'm just going to work it. With the contour of the panel. And this is going to tell us what we have. Your paper's probably going to load up pretty quick, especially with a cheap primer. So you want to keep an air hose, an air blower, easily at hand. So what I do, I just take an air hose like this. And just use it to clean out our sandpaper at times. So you're just going to work this until we see something. And, you know, it's going to be normal to start to see some of your filler come through. There's going to be normal to see some bad spots because we just roughed our panel in before. But the reason for this added step and why we didn't just go straight to high build primer, and this will be a good example. I'm going to show you right here. This right here is a small filler ridge, and it's filler. So that means the filler is higher than our base metal. So considering I'm not going for a show car here, I need to kind of just come in here and blend this in, and that's where a smaller block like this will come in handy. I can just come in here and hit this one area and just kind of feather it in until the ridge is gone. And a lot of you may not like it, but sometimes like this, it's going to be a cheap paint job. We're not worried that it's 100% straight. We're just trying to slick the car up where it looks decent. And I think a lot of you will be surprised that after we get some real primer sprayed on this, what it's going to look like. So just work slow. Make sure you don't have any big gouges, defects. Just kind of blend this stuff in, guys. It's going to take a little while. But I'm just going to run over everywhere we done body work. I'm going to hit this stuff, kind of work it down, make sure there's no giant gouges or scratches. And we'll be getting pretty close to spraying something on this. So I'm going to put you guys on time lapse for a minute. And if there's anything major I need to show you, or any kind of trick, I'll be back. So, got it pretty much blocked down. Now, keep in mind this was just a lacquer primer, so it is super thin. And it's going to look ugly when you do this stuff. But what I wanted it to do was show us places. And I've got a dent up here I didn't see, right here. See how it's dark right here? You got some metal above it. There's a dent right here. And this place in the back of the door that we worked out, that metal is high right here, very, very high. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to tap this down a little more. I'm going to put a little more filler in here. I'm going to scuff this with some 80, and when I tap this down, I'll scuff around it with some 80. We'll put a little more filler in here and work this stuff down. Like I said, we're not working for perfection. We're working to get rid of anything that's going to catch the eye, so to say. Any big places. And those two places are going to be big enough that the high build primer isn't going to heal them, so to say. High build primer is not a replacement for bodywork, but it does help in trying to slick up a rough car. You can get away with just a little bit more, but like I said, it's no replacement, and it's not going to fix dents or high spots. So I'm going to go in here, I'm going to tap this down, let's do a little body work, and we'll move on further. So while that stuff's curing, and as you've seen, I went there with my finger and just kind of blended those edges. That just makes it a little easier sand, especially when you're just going here and doing a small area. So while that is curing out, we're going to go ahead and move on to some other places we've done body work. I'll probably jump up here to the roof real quick, since there was just this area, the dent up here in the roof, and the B-pillar area, and repeat this process. This will ensure, guys, a lot of people see the cheap primer I've sprayed on as an extra step. What I see it as is an extra set of eyes. Let's just put it this way. Nobody's perfect as far as body work goes. I'm not going to spray an expensive material on it in order to see where my bad spots still are. So we're sanding most of it back off, as you can see. Just where it is soaked into the filler is pretty much going to be what is remaining. So let's move on to these other places, and I'll come back when it's time to work this other stuff down. And here was another one of those surprise areas. I run over this bare metal with this block. I seen a half crescent right here, which means there was a dent right here for something falling on this roof. So what I done, I come in here with my body hammer and I worked straight on that crescent, which means we put some dents in it right here. But now our roof has come up into a nice transition. So I'm gonna have to mix up a little more filler. We'll put it in this area right here, and we'll let it cure as we move on. We're gonna find quite a few bad places, guys. I anticipate this. But in the point of trying to do this as cheaply as possible with as little material as possible, this is the stuff you run into. And that's why we go through this step, because it's going to show us. And we're going to have to make that decision. Do we fix it or do we leave it? That is always a big question. Cheap paint jobs, not everything gets fixed, guys. Show car paint jobs, everything gets fixed. Daily driver paint jobs, not everything gets fixed. meaning you're going to have a decent looking car from a distance, but up close it might not be 100% perfect. So let me get some filler put in that, and then I'll be back. So I come in here and I work our places down up here and right here, and now we no longer have a little bumpy spot right here. So that few minutes of extra time, I literally spent like 2 minutes hand blocking this up here, and about a minute up here blocking this, and now we have a nice smooth panel. So the panel feels good at this point, so the door I will mark as done for our high build. However, our roof up here is still a little tacky. It's starting to get there. You still see me leave fingerprints in it, so that needs to sit a few more minutes, and I'll do the same thing I've done over here up there. I'll just hit it with a hand block with some 80 on it, and I'll switch it to a 150, and then we'll call it good. But I am going to guide coat that up there, since I don't have anything to kind of base my guide coat off of down here. And if you've been on the channel a while, you know I like to guide coat my filler because it lets me see everything, including any low spots on filler. So it saves material, saves time, which is what you shoot for with a budget style job. Alright, so I skimmed these couple of places on the quarter panel, and I've got our roof worked down up here now. It feels good and smooth, so it should be good up there. I'm going to spray a little guide coat on these and then work them down. And at this point it's real important to use something that is contrasting. So I'm using some of this red interior paint I had left over, so that's contrasting onto our black and contrasting onto our filler. So once that guide coat tacks up a little bit, we'll come in here. Like I said, I'll block this down and then we'll move on. But in the meantime, like the rest of this video, let's move on to some other areas, because you know, you might as well use your time wisely. So, got our quarter panel worked down. Our little spot up here, a little spot here, it's worked down, and then our little high spot back there that I tapped down. You can really see when you tap the little small high spot there that tapping that metal affects. So you just want to tap that stuff down, guys, just enough to be able to smooth it out, so to say. So we need to move on this rear deck panel and the trunk lid, and before you know it, we'll be ready to spray some primer on this thing. It is a lot of work, guys. A lot of people take it for granted. Try doing it yourself and you'll understand why some of these restoration shops and body shops charge what they do. This is tons and tons of labor intensive work, and we're not even going that far. We're just going to a driver quality, race car quality actual paint job. And I'll show you how that differs once we get some primer on this thing from the 65. So, like I said, I appreciate the guys that are doing this stuff out of the passion of it, or we wouldn't do it at all, because yeah, it's a bunch of work compared to other professions. So let's get on this trunk lid and rear deck. We're going to obviously have to sand the rear pan too, and the tail light panel and all that stuff. So let's get to it. All right, and here was one of them places I didn't see. There's a pretty good sized dent right here. You can really kind of tell You see the guide coat hasn't been touched at all in here. And even though the rest of this trunk feels pretty decent and pretty smooth, meaning it's going to be good enough for what we're doing, that place right there, and there's been a few dings I've been let slide here and there because of how I be able to kind of take them, and they've been kind of small and you can't feel them, so to say. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little filler in here, probably about an inch past all the way around. I'll let that dry and then I'll get back to sanding the rest of this stuff down here. So what I'm going to do, guys, I'm just going to take and I'm going to put my first little swap of filler directly in that dent. And I'm just going to get enough to kind of wet my spreader here. I'm going to come in here, and as I know where that dent's at, I want to apply a lot of pressure and heavier towards the sides. Kind of taper this filler off. And what that'll do is ensure that we should have a sufficient amount there in the center. And since we're not going to be spraying any more cheap primer over this and going the route that we did before, I'm going to try to spread this smooth as 100% possible. And if anybody's curious, I have a piece of 80 on one side of this block and a piece of 400 on the other. The 400 is what I'm using to kind of see these places. And if it's just something that needs to be feathered out a little more, I'm switching to the 80. Or if it's a little small spot, I've got some 150 over here in the corner over here folded up, and I'll do it that way. So it's not about making this thing 100% aero straight or 100% perfect, but we're still trying to end up with a somewhat nice car. So bigger spots, I did switch back to the air sander just to make it a little easier, and I'll top these off. But I got a little filler down here where I didn't want to. I'm just going to take our 80 and buzz that off right there. And then I'm just going to take that block and start working this filler down. So you can see the guide code is really telling us where we're at. You can see the lows around your edges, since it's another contrasting color other than what we had. So and like right here, it feels pretty good, but there's still a bunch of filler in areas that we don't need, so we're going to keep working it down in hopes that this low spot right here will disappear in the process. And once I get it down pretty close, I'll switch back to our 400 side. And then I can feel this and see what it feels like. And I think we're pretty good there. But now you can visually see what our dent right there actually looked like. And now for the side that I am dreading, guys, the passenger side. If you remember back from our last video, the passenger side of this car was the roughest part of this car. So I've just got the passenger quarter, the passenger door, and the cowl up here to do. I'm just going to scuff the rockers. They're going to be good enough. They're down below your eye line. You're not going to see them. Don't matter if they're 100% straight. They only matter if you're down ground level and you're looking at them. So we're not going to be doing that. This is a race car. So what we're doing, like I said, race car / daily driver quality paint job. So we're going to hope that it's pretty decent. But if it's not, that's what we're going to ship with. And of course, you know, if there's anything big and bad, I'm going to go in there and fix it like we have been doing this whole video. it's also a good time to remind you that you hitting the like button on these videos and hitting that subscribe button helps make these videos possible, along with commenting down below. So if you do that for me, I'd greatly appreciate it. So let's get back to this quarter panel. So I've done this a little different. Since we had some pretty decent spots, there's a pretty big pinhole and filler right there, and there's a little transition spot there, a little transition spot there, one here, and another pinhole and filler here. I decided to just go ahead and mark them and finish working the whole panel. So I'm gonna mix up some more filler, and ignore the background noise. One of my neighbors over here is mowing. And we're going to skim coat these places, let it tack out like we have this whole video. I'm going to guide coat it with some of the red, and while that stuff is kind of curing out, we're going to start working on this door, and hopefully it goes as smoothly as this quarter panel did. It's part of it, guys. I got to spend a little more time roughing this thing in, and I had to go back and do this stuff, but it's hard without visuals to see these places. So what I've done, that's why I use the cheap TranStar spray can primer. It's a lacquer primer. It's not going to hurt anything. It's not going to peel off or shrink very much because it's already thin. So, but what it does do is when we go back with like a 400 like this, it's going to very much highlight this stuff. The 400 is going to make it slick, so it feels like you're running your hand over smooth paint, and it's going to be super easy to feel and see these places being there. So, you know, a lot of you may think it's a wasted step. A lot of hardcore old body guys may think it's a wasted step, but I'm telling you guys, it's going to reduce the amount of filler. It's going to reduce your time in the end, especially on a production style paint job like this is going to be. So, got a little more filler put in that door in a few places. Most of this was pinholes. There was one low spot I missed right here, and there was a little door ding right here. Everything else was kind of pinholey stuff or transitional things. So, while this is setting up, I'm gonna get this stuff worked down. So I'm gonna put you guys on the big stand. Let's get this worked down. Well, so the door's worked out again. We've already scuffed the roof down. I went in there in the background, kind of hid around these edges a little bit. And that just leaves one panel, our cowl. So, yeah, I'm gonna say one panel, but we still got the quarter extensions. We still got the front end stuff to do, and I'm gonna do that at a later date. But the main goal is to get the main body of the car sealed up. That way we can start planning out how we're going to paint this thing and what we're going to paint it with. So that's going to be another thing that comes up for discussion. And I'm going to need your feedback down there in the comments. Do we give this thing a shiny paint job? Do we give it a flat paint job? Do we give it a patina style paint job? How many of y'all would like to see each one of those? Let me know down there in the comments. Regardless, it's going to be lettered up and, you know, all those things look like a 60s drag car. So I think at this point, it's going to slick up pretty decent. Once we get the primer on, I feel pretty good about it at this point. I knew there was going to be a few places. I've said that a couple times in this video, I knew. But that's why we're going this extra step. Going that extra mile that we probably shouldn't have to, but you know, it's just good quality control. And, you know, this is part of it. So let's get started on the cow, see if we can get this thing roughed out one last time. And hopefully we can start moving on to mixing some primer and spraying some things. So I got the car wiped down, blew off, and the rear wheel's bagged up. I'm not going to tape the cage up. I am, however, going to take my pin out and throw it in the floor. But I'm going to actually change the interior color of this car. We'll get into that a little later, but I'm not real worried about massive amounts of overspray inside the car. But I'm going to walk around the car. I'm going to show you what it looks like right now. And at this point, the primer I'm going to use is some leftover Summit 2K urethane primer, which is a high build. I didn't have but about 1/8 of a quart or 1/4 of a quart left. So I went here and I reduced it down about 50%. So this will not be a high build primer at this point. It's I don't know if you can hear it, it sounds like water. It is going to be more of a urethane sealer at this point. Depending on what the car looks like after we sprayed it, this might be our final stage. And if so, I will add the price of a quart of the Summit primer into this, but into our budget, so to say. But I'm just trying to stretch what I already have instead of ordering something. You know, as usual, things are kind of tight, so I'm trying to use things that I already have. And I donated the rest of this gallon of Summit primer to the 65 Mustang. So, and come to find out, I needed it. So, yeah, here we are. When it comes down to my car, I've got about you know, not enough, probably. We'll see how far we can stretch it. Right, the goal here is to get this thing sealed up. Then if we have to go back in there and spray a high build on it, we will. But I feel pretty good about it. Other than maybe some sand and scratches, I think we're pretty good to go. So let me get this paint mixed up, guys, and then I'll be back and we'll talk about it a little more. So in the mind of budget, I am going to use the cheapest paint gun I have, which is a Porter Cable paint gun. If I recall correctly, they sell these at Walmart. You're going to need at least a 30-gallon compressor to spray paint through a paint gun. When it comes time to paint the car, we're going to do something a little different that'll be available to everybody, which is electricity. We're going to use an electric paint gun, I think, to paint the car. I think, and I could spray the primer through it, but I don't have time to experiment with it right now, so to say. That way I can let you guys know how things actually work out and how to mix paints to spray through it properly. So for this, I'm going to use the cheapest paint gun I got. I'm going to use air. And around the roll cage, I'm just going to take a piece of cardboard, hold it between there while I spray these areas. This is not going to be a slick job. This is going to be primer. So I've got our primer out into a container. I'll flip it around, I'll show it to you. But this is going to be the amount of sprayable material we're going to have. So this is all the material I had left right here. Now this should be more than enough to spray the back half of this car with at least a couple coats. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a low temp activator, which is a little, you know, a little slower drying stuff. And I'm going to mix it in there. It mixes 4 to 1. since I've already added some reducer down here, I'm not going to add any more. We got a good thin consistency. This is something I'd like to see more on paint than primer, especially a high build. But like I said, since we had to thin it down like we did the stretched materials, it's going to be more like a sealer on this car. And that also said, guys, there's nothing else to do but add some hardener to it, mix it up, get it all respirated up, and start spraying. So I'm going to put you guys on the big stand. I'll move y'all around as I'm doing it. So bear with any kind of weird transitional things in the time-lapse stuff, and then I'll be back. And as anticipated, it looks rougher than that in gel because the filler is absorbing the primer. Unfortunately, that's something that happens, especially when it's reduced down as much as this is. It is literally, you can see, it's just sucked into the filler, especially anywhere it was super raw. Figured that'd happen because, like I told y'all before, body filler is like a sponge and it'll absorb water just like that too, guys. So you definitely want to get the thing sealed off. I've got enough for one more paint cut full, and I think I'm just going to hit the body filler areas, or anywhere it's kind of sucked down into it for now. I'm going to have to order another gallon of primer. I anticipated that, but this will give us, you know, a little protection until we get some more in here and on the car. So, just the way it goes sometimes. Not everything's sunshine and rainbows all the time. Because literally, that was like a first kind of tack coat of primer. It's not even really a full coat. I tried to put more on the roof because, you know, it didn't have nothing on it. So, yeah. The only other option, guys, is try to reduce it down some more and try to stretch what I got. And I don't know if that's such a good idea or not either, so I toss it around. I need about a cup and a half to put another coat on the whole car. So I don't need to stretch it much, but that little bit of stretch might be just too much, so to say. So I'm gonna let this kind of dry a pretty good little amount, a little past its flash time. I'm gonna let it kind of get to the point where you can touch it, so to say. And hopefully that'll lock that filler in so I can get past the pore stages of it, so to say. It's been about 10 minutes since I sprayed this, and I pushed it here in the sun since it's hot and sunny today. Kind of let it cure out, and as you can see, we should have a pretty decent reflection across things. This primer will dry a little bit more as we go, but you know, it looks pretty decent, especially for a race car. So, since I didn't have enough primer, I took some of the flat black urethane I had, Summit brand, that I painted under the hood of the 65 with, and mixed that in the primer. So, mixing that flat black in there is not necessarily the right way to do this. However, it allowed me to stretch that primer enough to get a couple coats on it, and that got it to quit absorbing into the filler, so to say. So, the filler should be sealed off. The bare metal should be sealed off at this point. So this video is probably going to be a little shorter than other ones, and I apologize for that. Some of you like short videos, some of you like long videos. I tried this video what I'm actually doing, and when it gets edited down, what's there is usually what it is. If it's something that is real time consuming, the videos run longer. If it's something that's kind of quick, it goes shorter. So that said, guys, if you like these kind of videos, make sure you hit the like button, share them with your friends. If you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button. It does help the channel to grow. If you are a subscriber, I greatly appreciate you guys. And I look forward to everybody's comments down below. So until next video, guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you at the next one.